Why is it not we're addressing this as a collective?
Right.
Why is this a woman's movement?
Right. Welcome everyone to Talk Shop, a space for GS&Pers to come together and have unfiltered conversations. But before we really get into the topics today, let's welcome this beautiful panel today. Look at all the jewel tones we have. All of the colors, I love it. So today we're gonna get into a discussion about something that's been going on in the industry for a while now and in the broader context of the cultural landscape, Me Too movement. It was started by Tarana Burke and then carried through by women of Hollywood, and then kind of boiled even down closer to us in the advertising industry with Diet Madison Avenue. And so a lot of strides have been made in that movement, and it's even been coined as now in 2019, we're in this post-Me Too era. Do we feel like we're post-Me Too? And what are, I guess, some of the issues that the Me Too movement has missed or has lacked in really moving forward the conversation?
It frustrates me a lot when people talk like that because things are still happening to people all the time. Women are still having these experiences. There's so much more to be shared. There are still so many women who can't come forward or don't feel empowered to, that I think it just puts a really narrow view of like, well, Rose McGowan got it off her chest, so like, we're good, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know, I just think it's really limiting.
Like a lot of people, because they're not thinking about it as something that's ongoing or just a complete shift in thinking, there's a lot of backlash. So like creating the right spaces to continue having this conversation is something that's actually like really at risk in this moment where people are like, era's over, like now we're in the post, now we can talk about how we hated it so much. And it's like, you know, like that's not really what's happening. And like just to get specific about finance, like I just read this article the other day that was about how in the financial world in particular, because it's so male dominated, there's actually this whole trend around not hiring more women because they're afraid that they're going to get into a Me Too situation.
I've heard that come up a whole bunch of like men saying, oh, well now I can't say anything because it could be misinterpreted. But if you're saying something that could be misinterpreted, then you need to turn the lens inward and think
It's not
about.
like it just now became like really uncomfortable for us or offensive or rude.
I think that those
was.
men are the same men that would have made these offenses before, and now they're using this movement as an excuse to not change their ways, not talk to women. But really what that is an excuse, and it's hurting women's careers because they can't have those private conversations that are important that could further your career. And instead it's just the male club.
That's basically, that's what like basically my like qualm with like the Me Too movement overall. That like I think that as a movement, I'm for the record, because this does get misconstrued when this comes up a lot, I am completely in support of like female advancement and do not want sexual harassment to happen. But when it comes at the expense of like my personal trauma and me having to like rehash my story for the benefit of the knowledge of other people that have access to the internet in this year of our Lord 2019, I don't really understand why we have to do that. And I think like part of the reason why we feel like, oh, it's an era is because like the movement is built on stories, and stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we think that we've reached the end of this collective story about sexual harassment because it was based on a bunch of other stories.
Then how else do you communicate to the mass audience who doesn't get it that this is wrong behavior without having some truth in there?
I actually feel like that's what made the movement so successful and poignant. Not that it's over, but is that it was like just the idea of Me Too. It was like for men, for example, it's like every woman that you know, your mom and your two sisters and your cousin and your wife, like have all had experiences like this. I feel like that really made it feel close to home for people who don't experience it all the time.
I think for me, it just comes down to like deconstructing rape culture to answer the question, like, what do we do? How do we stop these things from happening if we don't attach it to personal stories? And it's just like hitting all the low-level stuff. I understand that like we kind of have to treat the ills that are already happening before we go around doing prevention, but like let's get more preventive because like obviously it's not working. And I think that like to a certain degree, yes, the movement is successful if we hit at the root cause, which is that like rape culture is awful, and here's the like 7 things that we do as a society to push forward the narrative that women are less than and that my body does not belong to me, then we won't have that problem.
But I feel like that's been talked about. I do hear you that it's, you know, we need to be forward looking, and we also need to, you know, make sure that we're educating people in the right way. But for me, there is at least a level of, unless if it's not brought home to you, you don't really understand how your personal day-to-day, like as a man, and even as a woman, can contribute to to the rape culture that, you know, prevails in society.
You said something really interesting there, as a man or even as a woman. And I think too, there's a sense here, we're talking about it through the lens of like physical and sexual aggression or assault. And what we're actually talking about is exploitation due to power differentials. And that can take many different genders. That's not always male versus female. And it's something like you see in the Me Too movement. Terry Crews is a great example of somebody in the spotlight who's come forward and said Me Too as well. And so to me, there's this sense of, why is it because I am the same as someone else that I have to be the champion and I have to speak to this?
Maybe that's the next phase of this movement, is like a lot of really brave people have told you their personal stories. Now let's not rely on it to know how to do the right thing and know how to recognize the wrong thing and be an ally.
Male creatives are a little more sensitive about their ideas because they're makers and they're making stuff, and this is my stuff, my idea, and my blood, sweat, and tears went into this, and it's just like, okay, it's still a banner ad.